deployment of source-related projects across Europe. However, we need also to speed up procedures for the energy infrastructure projects, which are crucial for the connecting so-called go-to zones with backbone energy infrastructure. Lastly, we need to find a balance to tackle supply chain issues that already existed before Russia invaded Ukraine, but since then have only increased. With the need for more and cheaper raw materials, we have to look to reliable trade partners, but of course also to boost European industrial base. To sum up, offshore renewable energy is a viable source of energy. A sustainable and reliable energy system needs to combine offshore renewable energy with other energy technologies, grid efficiency, storage opportunities, and flexible energy consumption. This requires a variety of investments, not only into offshore wind, but also into other technologies and assets to secure a green and efficient energy system. From legislative side, we need to break down barriers to these necessary investments, and this is what we are working on with the revision of the Renewable Energy Directive, the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive, and other important legislation. The industry indeed seems ready to capitalize, but we need to ensure that they are also able to do so, and that the necessary speed to dusting off incentives, instruments, and removing obstacles that does not serve the good of the climate change. I hope you will have a fruitful discussion at this very timely and important event, and I look forward to receive whatever new ideas and input that I can help to put into the legislative work that we do here in the noisy European Parliament. Thank you.
Thanks. Am I connected? Well, you can probably hear me anyway. That was Pernille Weiss, MEP from Denmark, talking about some of the issues. I'm Matthew James. I'm the publisher of Energy Post. And I was delighted to be asked to host this panel or moderate this panel because of the people involved. These are the actors that are going to be directly affected or can help make sure that wind production, wind electricity. Thank you. The wind electricity generation is built up as quickly as possible with these targets that Pernille just mentioned in the background. So we've got some of the key players here. I wanted to reflect not on everything that Pernille had said, but in some of the key things. If we talk about it in terms of three aspects, what are the regulatory barriers to development? The conditions, as we all know at the moment, are extremely good for people wishing to invest in wind. But how can we be sure that the wind, that they're able to execute those plans speedily to be able to get to these targets of 60 gigawatts by 2030, 300 we're talking about by 2050. How can we improve the regulatory conditions? How can we ensure that the system that the electricity is being delivered into is ready for it, to make sure that it's value for customers? What are the investments required? I think we have people that can comment on all these aspects. And then finally, is the industry, the wind industry itself, is it ready to capitalize on these? How is it being affected by some of the current conditions that we see in the marketplace today? I would like to first come to Dariusz Lociński. Listening to Pernille, she talked about, in main, she talked about two of these key aspects. She talked about, on the one hand, cutting through red tape, simplifying the process. As the president of PG Baltica, the part of PG which was responsible for these projects, could you explain what you're trying to achieve, by when, and how these kind of regulatory obstacles, or how the processes could be streamlined in light of changes in the financial markets and what have you? I'd like to, first of all, hear from you on exactly what you're trying to achieve and what you see the obstacles. Mr. Lociński.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your having and for my attention. Okay. I would like to divide my presentation into 5 general points. In the first, We, as the company which responsible for the offshore wind project, we need a prediction of offshore development, stable regulatory environment. This is the first important things because this project is prepared for a very long time, and it is necessary for each company and which preparing this project and investors which potentially lend money for us. The second is guarantee for stable income for investor. The actual macroeconomic situation impact the probability of the first phase project, so the extraordinary intervention should be assessed to guarantee the timeline development of project with phase 1. What is the phase 1? In Baltic Sea in Poland, the phase 1 is all projects which are preparing at the moment. Now we are waiting for the second phase because now the Polish legislative government preparing decision for it. Now we preparing two big projects, the Baltica 1, 2 and 3. Together it is 3.5 gigawatts. It is, in my opinion, huge projects in the Baltic region. The next important issue is that would be a good idea for the future to include some border buffer enabling adaptation to extraordinary issues which they need to engage many decision processes. And connected with this is important, it is the situation with the harbor. Offshore wind farm will not be developed without installation port. Investment boom in the offshore sector, there will be a big competition for it. What is more, local ports guarantee local job creation and positive impact on the economy. I think that therefore is the urgent to build more installation port in the Baltic region. Existing Polish port should be upscaled to reserve for installation port also for the project development by other member states. I can say that PGE 2 weeks ago bought harbor in Ustka. There will be very important for us asset because there will be harbor which will be support harbor during the construction phase, and after this is in PGE scope mainly harbor for operation and maintenance offshore wind. That we are prepare this harbor. For my point of view, it is the most important because there is a huge project for this energy sector. The last point, in my opinion, is there is a need of simply and speed to permitting processes for the offshore. For example, Power EU process, some good solution in this scope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lociński, for those opening remarks. Okay. I think maybe if you could turn my level down a little bit. Thank you. And hopefully the translators can hear at the back. Thanks very much, Dariusz Lociński, President of the Board of Management at PGE Baltica. Ricardo, before we hear from some of the other stakeholders here today, be interested to hear your initial reactions to the challenges facing a key actor. And this can't be unique. This is something you know about these people trying to develop these projects. What are the priorities for you as if you look at the specific question? How can we simplify? How can we make it easier? How can we get these projects going faster? And we'll perhaps deal with the back ends, the sort of system integration a little bit later. But in terms of actually getting these projects off the ground, are there things that your unit is aware of, generally in Europe and specifically the Baltic, that you're looking at tackling? Thank you.
It will work.
Trust it. Trust. It'll go.
Thank you. very relevant, all the points that were raised, actually, and maybe it doesn't work. But what I would highlight maybe is three things. Thank you. First of all, so in terms of regulatory framework, there are actors asking for more, others asking for less and simplification, so there's never a perfect solution. But the regulatory framework is only the starting point. Actually, the focus, in my opinion, should be on the implementation. Many of the problems that are raised and addressed by fully implementing what is already there at the European level and a national level, many of these issues would be solved. This is the first thing. Then, at the same time, what we see, and I think is being reinforced in the last years, is that regional cooperation is key. We're moving from a frame very national, at least in offshore in general, towards, okay, we need to cooperate, we need more energy islands, more hybrids, it's safer for the security. We are in moments of stress, like the one we are living now, more interconnectors help. So more regional cooperation is actually absolutely key, and that goes for all the levels. It goes at highest ministerial level until local players, manufacturing, utilities, and TSOs. And the third one, out of all of the ones that were raised, which I agree with all of them, maybe on the permitting side, indeed, that has been an issue raised for many years by the industry. I'm sure colleagues will explain further. And we have come with a package of ideas and rules which, if implemented, would make the life much easier for investors, for the utilities, because it shortens the time until they get revenue. So it's one of the key elements on the capital, on this difficult situation. So actually, by implementing at a local level and national level, this permitting acceleration, you solve an... Again. Yeah, I think projects, if you look at offshore now, offshore they are very complex projects now. You're talking about sea basin, so a lot of animals, a lot of fishes living there. So it's a complex environment, first of all. But the reality is that today the projects are 5, 6, 10 years, and that's a frame where, yeah, maybe it's not ambitious enough, it's not going at the speed where we need Europe to go, where we need the energy mix, decarbonization to go. So from 10 years, already by implementing the provisions that we propose in the repower, and there are many things. We have the go-to areas, we have the mapping of the NECPs, we have a lot of ideas. If done, that could go down by a third. So yeah, that would be, we can go in more details, but that would be the high-level answer.
Okay, thanks, Ricardo. I think we're going to share this.
It work, but the technicians are going down with the voice.
The level, yeah.
Up with the level to the
Yeah, I can hear it sort of...
That's why we have...
Yeah, I'm going to go... Can I just... if you can't hear me at the back, will you put your hand up? Can you hear what I'm saying? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, it might be a problem with transition, but for me, I prefer to have a good experience in the room, so that without the... push a little bit on that. Please make note of your questions, and we'll come back to them in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes. We have Marcin from ZPP, and the interesting thing with you have two interests in the successful or development of this sector, because just it gives us an idea of what's at stake. So maybe if you could just talk from those two perspectives briefly, what are the implications for getting this right? We'll call it that. So it's a speedy, strong development of renewables from the Baltic, and the impacts of it if it's not capitalised on. What would that mean?
I would even say there are three dimensions. ZPP is a cross-sectoral business organization. We are present, of course, in Poland, but we cooperate regionally with our partners in V4 countries. We cooperate with 3 CIS countries. So definitely the region as a whole is a strong environment for us to be active, to work together. So the first dimension is what's happening with the energy sector. We are super glad that Polish companies enter offshore wind business, offshore wind sector, and they build the capacity, that they build the competence in that field. As you may know, most of the projects right now, or even all from the phase 1, are done as joint ventures. So Polish companies cooperate with international experienced players from the offshore business. PGE works with Ørsted. Orlen Group has a different partner, and I'm glad it's happening in Poland. We're building this capacity. That's the first dimension. I also hope that through those partnerships, our companies will be able to invest in the future, not just in the Baltic Sea, but also in other basins. So hopefully we'll be invited as partners by our current cooperators to do business elsewhere. The second dimension is about Polish business and business present in Poland, also international business. We are a strong manufacturing base for the EU. In some sectors, we are a major producer of goods, processor of food, FMCG sector, automotive parts. It's very strong in Poland. And as we observe what's happening, we see our climate goals. The industry needs and expects clean energy. And definitely the offshore wind energy provides the quantity, the volume for the clean energy. It's quite reliable. It's not a super stable source of energy because we experienced some issues, problems in Ireland, I think 2 years ago. But anyway, it is quite reliable source of energy. So definitely the industry is looking forward to use first installations in the Baltic Sea. And definitely that's still, although the procedures are long, I was a rapporteur on the European offshore energy strategy in the European Economic Social Committee, I think a year ago, and we also discussed the procedures and the fast track road we'd like to have for those projects, especially now in the energy crisis with the war in Ukraine. But it's still much faster than the nuclear energy or some of the traditional installations. So we definitely want to go into that direction as clients, corporate clients of energy companies. And finally, ZPP mostly consists of SMEs. We have more than 50,000 companies on board, and we want to see what Mr. President just said, the whole ecosystem built on the basis of the new sector that we have in the Baltic Sea. We hope there will be more companies cooperating with the sector, more suppliers. Of course, I understand that the sector so far is heavily concentrated. I mean, the integration of specific competences is there in a small amount of group of companies, but we want to enter this. We have the will as a business to enter the supplier side, and hope Poland and the region will be beneficial out of it.
So in summary, you're, from a perspective of industry and consumers and workers in general, this has been welcome. This is a positive, an important development in Poland.
We must understand that the Baltic Sea is becoming I think, the second basin in Europe, potentially the largest in terms of the offshore wind business. So for Poland, for the whole region, it is super important, very significant move forward. So definitely will become more competitive. We are about to become a strong energy actor in Europe.
And just a final note on the customers, the large industrials, just for the audience here, could give us an idea of the type of businesses we're talking about, the main consumers of energy?
Of course, we have a number of energy-intensive companies such as KGHM or paper mills. But in terms of businesses, it's manufacturing of furnitures, automotive sector, automotive parts. We're not as strong in automotive as Slovakia, but we are a major source of automotive parts for a number of European players, and not just only European players. Construction business, you may not know, but a lot of construction materials, ceramic tiles come from Poland. Poland is the second after Spain producer of ceramics. So we are a large and very diversified country. Food processing, even that's interesting, you may not know, but we are one of the two largest fish processor in Europe. Also the fish like salmon. We don't have salmon in the Baltic Sea, but we are one of the largest processors. So manufacturing side is really important for us. It's a part of our DNA, and we're not about to give it away. Even if the energy crisis is here, we want to stick to strong manufacturing in Poland.
Thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to get an idea, and for everybody here, what's at stake, and thanks for making that clear. Those are the type of the businesses that need to be able to rely on a good, clean, affordable, you know the words, source of green energy. So before we come back on a couple of points, I know that there's quite a bit to try and get through. Pierre Tardieu, he's the Chief Policy Officer at Wind Europe. Pierre, you've heard what Pernille had to say. You've already heard some of the remarks from the other panelists. Perhaps you could chip in with your two penneth, and then we will get to the discussion between you all. Thank you.
I just want to pick up on a couple of your points. First of all, it's great to hear that Polish business wants to get involved in growing this industry. I think if we're going to resolve the energy crisis that we're in at the moment, offshore wind is going to have to grow very quickly and exponentially. So what we're looking at right now is 3 gigawatts per year being built in Europe for now. It's going to need to go to 7 by 2025, and then very, very quickly to 20 gigawatt per year. Yeah, so the pie is about to get a lot bigger very fast, and that means a lot of opportunity for businesses to get involved. The Baltic, as has been said very correctly here, is going to play a very significant role. Clearly, the North Sea has been the cradle of the offshore wind industry, the global industry. But the Baltic, now there's a commitment by heads of state and government from the Baltic countries to do 20 gigawatt by 2030. Yeah, going from roughly 3.5 today. So that's a huge growth trajectory. Now, can it be done? Yeah, to the point of the member of European Parliament, Pernille Weiss. A few things to keep in mind. Technology is not the hurdle. Technology is not the barrier. You know, the industry is investing in new technology all the time. We're looking at 15 megawatt turbines now, some of which are going to be produced in Poland by Vestas by 2024. Recent announcements, which is extremely good news. Finance is not a problem either, right? There were 43 billion euros invested in wind farms in Europe last year, right? So what we need is visibility on auctions and visibility on revenues, right? So as long as you have that, you can grow the supply chain in a way that that delivers. What do we mean by growing the supply chain exactly? When you're talking about a growth trajectory like the one that I've just described, going from 3 gigawatt per year to 20 gigawatt per year in a very short span of time, very, very quickly, we're going to see lack availability of vessels, you know, to install, to go out and install these wind farms, the foundations, the offshore substations, etc. So that's going to be one of the bottlenecks. A second bottleneck is going to be, you know, foundation. If you try to procure a foundation on the market, the producers of foundations are booked solid for the next 3 years. Yeah. And then at a certain point, there's going to be also a need to ramp up the production of turbines themselves. Yeah, and then there's the all-important, you know, investments in ports. And we're evaluating it at 9.5 billion that need to be invested in port infrastructure in Europe in the very, very, very short term. So in order to be able to do that, to ramp up, the market needs to have a very, very clear idea of what it needs to, what is expected from them in terms of volume delivery. The pipeline of auctions is actually very, you know, backloaded in a certain sense, right? It becomes very, very steep towards the end of the decade. So it needs to be smoother. It needs to be quicker. And we also need visibility on revenue. And this is when you look at what's being discussed now in terms of, you know, remaking the whole market design in response to the crisis. One of the key questions that this market design needs to answer is, you know, where's the revenue going to come from? What is going to be the visibility for investors? Because at the end of the day, the energy crisis that we're in, as I said at the start, is a mismatch between supply and demand. We need a lot of new capacity to come online very, very quickly. And as you said, offshore wind can be done at scale and speedily. The speed bits, and everybody mentioned this, but I think there's a solution here. As you said, Ricardo, the European Commission's proposals on permitting as part of Repower EU are excellent. Many of them are excellent. You know, shortening the permitting time period to 2 years, considering renewables to be in the overriding public interest, making it easier to repower wind farms, less relevant for offshore, but very important for onshore. This can be done very quickly. And what we would recommend as Wind Europe, one recommendation to perhaps take away here, is to do this as part of an Article 122 regulation right now. Yeah, the energy crisis has taught us that the EU is able to regulate very, very quickly to solve problems. We saw the Article 122 in July on gas demands, and again, an infra marginal revenue cap in September, decided on in a matter of weeks. If permitting of renewables is the structural issue that we all need to solve, let's do it now.
Ricardo, maybe you want to comment on that last point before I come back to system integration in general. This potential prioritization through Article 122, is that something that can be applied? I mean, the system is, it's one energy system. If it's been applied to solve the gas short-term issues, why can't it be automatically applied to other areas? Because the implications are across the board.
I fully agree that we need to accelerate a lot, and it needs to be, first of all, agreed by co-legislators. So a lot of things are already there on the table and can be agreed quickly if the co-legislators are able to make an agreement. So I mean, if you accelerate the RED II provisions agreement, you might tackle most of the problems with permitting at regulatory level. On the 122, I don't want to go into too many details, but obviously, I mean, 122 is applied for emergency situations where this is more a structural thing. So you can argue if it is emergency in the sense that it's very important and very urgent, but is it a case for a 122?
I think the point was that it's part of solving the emergency. So if you have a problem here, if this is a potential solution in terms of increasing the speed of deployment of other technologies going to help alleviate the emergency, then could it be bracketed? I'm not pushing one way or another, but I think that was the point.
I will not say yes or no. I will just say permitting, even if you accelerate it a lot and you fully comply with what we propose, so very ambitious, it will still take years. So whether the project that is in permitting stage today is the solution for the crisis with Russia is a little bit debatable. So I would not say whether I agree or not with the 1 to 2 for a structural problem. I would say that it needs to be agreed by co-legislators very quickly, and there are already discussions ongoing for that.
But on the permitting, more specific changes and positive moves is what you were saying earlier. I would like to now talk about the other side of it. If I could come back to you now, Mr. Lociński. From your perspective, you've talked about permitting, addressing that. We've talked about the positive conditions in general at the moment, and clearly you're looking to ramp up your capacities quite quickly over the next 7 years, and it's part of a bigger move in general. So just coming to the other side of it, how do we get the energy into the system? How confident are you at the moment that the energy that you generate is going to be used, it's not going to be wasted, and that it will be affordable, useful for a balanced system?
Okay. In my opinion, is that the offshore wind is the sector which reality can change our mix of energy, and but we don't talking only about one part of this market, but we should say whole market. And I try to describe what I am doesn't mean about it. In my opinion, it is necessary to create mechanism that will allow for storing supplies energy in the period when the system is balanced, and supply this energy when we need this energy from shortage. It is the first important, but I am talking about the storage of energy. In this case, we need to distinguish between the possibility of supplying energy in milliseconds from the storage, and in example, accumulator batteries, and systems with a longer time consist to introducing energy into grid. In example, electricity from hydrogen electrolysis, or for example, hydropower plants. It is the most important because the system all the time must be balanced. Not should be, must be, because we need the energy at the moment. We should have the energy enough for each customer. At the moment, for each consumer. The second point is we consider define the role of gas unit, because in the energy balance, in example, whether they will constitute cold reserve, for example, from the power from gas, or will stay work in the national power system at the level of their world planned in the past. It is the good question for me, and we should answer what is proposal, what is a way for the power plant from gas. And the second information important is a combination of energy produced with wind farms, with system heat, and the situation and of energy surplus to work with heat storage with use of electro boilers or heat pumps. It is a way when we don't should waste of energy, and storage of energy when we have this energy from the offshore wind much more than we need, for example.
You mentioned hydropower. What other alternatives, serious alternatives, are you or the parent company PGE looking at in terms of being able to hold on to the power when it's not needed directly in the system?
Now we preparing storage magazine from classical, but hydrogen, not hydrogen, sorry, from hydropower plant, which is our storage, and we are preparing a new project from electricity storage from 800 megawatt. It is are responsible for stabilizing of national grid. Because we know that sometimes we need this huge power energy at the moment, and it is important. The point 5, in my opinion, in this speak, only the answer above we allow the say when the departure from the reserve supplied by conventional power plants may realistically take place, because we should find the answer for each question. For example, offshore, and gas and heat pump and others, photovoltaic. It is all mix which should work together at the moment, because we know that each power supply should work at the same time, and should be connected with us. And reassume my answer, two conditions must be sure. The firstly, the situation in Europe, I am talking about the war in Ukraine, must be stabilized, and consequently the energy market must stabilize. I'm thinking about energy security and price of energy, because it is connected closely together. And priority for this situation, I understand that it is priority for all, and for all government will do everything what they can to manage of this crisis. And secondly, development and effective implementation mechanisms for functioning of the energy market will large volume of renewable energy characterized by a low level of stability, because the most important in the energy market is stability.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So before we come to the audience for a question, and perhaps, do you know where we are on time? I know we started slightly late. Are we 15 minutes left? Okay. Then very briefly, could you just come back on that side of it? We talked about the sort of permitting, getting the project off the ground, but on the back end, in terms of making sure the energy is, the electricity, the green electricity is integrated, not wasted. What can we expect to be happening over, to 2030? How will the picture change? At the moment, there's almost no large-scale storage of this type outside of hydro.
I think the framework that was proposed, the direction that was proposed in the Green Deal is still the one applicable. Maybe it has accelerated, and we see reasons very important for them, but the direction has not changed, which means, in general, we need to go much beyond where we are today on energy efficiency, consume less or lose less. So that is the first starting point, and that can be done by technologies, but also at home. You can save energy, and that's the energy you don't consume is the one you don't need to produce. So that is the first thing. Then it's about electrification. It was being mentioned, the heat pumps, all that. So the more you electrify for the parts that make sense in the energy system, you will go further in the energy transition. And obviously you will be needing hydrogen, you will be needing other carriers to complement. You cannot be 100% electrified. In 2030, we still need to go, as we said in the Green Deal, in that direction, and I would just say much faster. And that's what we had said in the REPowerEU. So actions by the consumer are very important at the demand level, but also in the investments that are being done by the utilities in how to get all this energy mix and all this new demands.
Is it expected, or are you planning for an energy system where hydrogen? We know the targets are significant. I mean, do you expect that hydrogen to be created within Europe's borders?
Yes, that's what we say in the offshore strategy. There will be a part of it that will be generated at home, and there will be parts that are needed to be imported. I mean, we need to, at the end of the day, renewable hydrogen or sustainable hydrogen means that you need to put an electrolyzer and needs to utilize renewable electricity. So that electricity can be used for demand directly or can be used to produce hydrogen. So you cannot put infinite amount of electrolyzer at home, and that means you will need to import to a certain amount. So there's no one-size solution, and you need to look at the whole system, including with third countries, with outside of Europe, who then normally should follow the same standards of sustainability and so on.
And just maybe a detailed quote, I'll come back to you in a second, Marcin, either for Dariusz or for Ricardo. From these green electrons producing hydrogen, would you expect to, would it be for your own use? I mean, power to gas and within the country, or do you expect it to go across borders? I mean, we're not expected to export hydrogen. I understand that the targets are kind of 50-50 imports and then for home use. But do you think that that's would it be just for local, regional use, any hydrogen that's produced for storage to convert back into power, or would you be exporting it? Is that something that's been discussed?
I think that hydrogen is this new technology, and I see the opportunity in this. But now we are preparing the strategy of this. But it is not clearly decided because the technology should be for us economical, and now we analyzing this. But in the PGE side, we don't prepare any project for hydrogen, but looking for maybe in the future we should do it. But our strategy concentrate on build offshore wind farms.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there is the source, only the source potential for hydrogen, and because in our set we have our system for heat, and we thinking how to use potential our energy to supply this, because in the end we should have cheap energy for our customer. It is our target.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have a question for the panel before we carry on? Yes, indeed. Okay. The gentleman on the right.
Okay, I try to do it without micro.
I can. I'll come and say hello. Hang on. There you go. If you could introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. I'm just a citizen and interested in energy. I strongly believe in renewable energy, but problem is irregularity. Solar, when there's too much sun, too much energy. When it's cloudy day, not enough energy. Wind, when it's stormy, too much electricity. When it's quiet, like it was a summer, not enough. And problem with electricity, you cannot store electricity except with batteries, very difficult to have. But there's another source, that is hydro, water. At the moment, we always speak about dams, les barrages, about producing water. But we forget about, in the Middle Ages, they used water for minerals, les moulins à vent. And also another one that is available 24 hours a day, all year long, is from the waves. In French, we say l'énergie marémotrice. With waves, it's every 6 hours, all year long that you have it. And so far, it costs not a lot. You have waves everywhere, and you can also use it from rivers. What about it?
Fair question. I mean, PGE, Mr. Lociński, I mean, are there other renewable energy sources that you, just to answer quickly on this question, I know we're here to talk about Baltic wind build-up, but can you comment from a PGE perspective on your interests in other renewable technologies?
Yes, we are looking for a potential opportunity, but at the moment, what I said, we concentrate on a strategy. When we decide our target, our goal, the first, we should follow with our energy transformation. It is the way of this energy transformation at the moment is offshore wind farms, and it is now main direction, and maybe in the future, but at the moment I don't think so.
Okay, Another question. Yeah, 1 second.
Just one thing.
Sorry, Marcin, yeah.
Although Ricardo might maybe even better in the answer, but as far as I remember, the European offshore energy strategy, those examples, I mean, technologies like that are there. I mean, the floating platforms are right now discussed and in a way also tested out there. So definitely it may be the way forward. It's very difficult for business. I mean, it's impossible for businesses like PGE or others to plan, to build their strategy on that. But at the European level, we observe and we follow those changes and new technologies. There are some platforms that are right now exercise its efficiency, and possibly within a couple of years, it is the way to follow. And
thanks very much. There perhaps one more question. Yeah, far away.
My name is Frank Schwalberhoth. I'm from Germany. I'm one of the founders of the German Greens and the first Green member of parliament in Germany and the first Green in the European Parliament.
Welcome.
My family is from Słupsk, therefore I'm very happy to be on a Polish event. Since 30 years I'm following wind energy. And I discovered something which most business people are not enough aware. Because when you start on wind energy in general, you have to be very charming. You have to fight for the heart of the people who are living besides. Even if it is offshore, there is a certain resistance. We saw it here in Belgium when the mayor of Knokke was against wind turbines because you could see them in the horizon about 1 centimeter away. That means you have to fight for the heart of the people. For example, look on Germany, where I'm from. The city of Husum was nothing. But because of wind energy and of the wind energy fair, the pride of people in Husum, the local population, grow incredibly. The same with journalists. I spoke to 2 journalists who had been invited by the Wind Energy Association to go on a wind turbine just at the sea, a huge one. And one of the journalists told me he had exactly the same feeling as when he was in Egypt, standing on the bottom of the pyramids. It was so breathtaking that he since then is a total fan of wind turbines and the necessity of wind turbines. And to finish, you are speaking of 3 gigawatt, 10 gigawatt, 30 gigawatt. When you look here around, who knows how much it is? I propose that you will link it, for example, with the energy, with the electricity. For example, in Belgium, I think we have here in Belgium 80 gigawatt a year. Or Lithuania, I think it's 10 gigawatt. Or Poland, I looked just on the web, 150 gigawatt. That you link it to something which is understandable for the people here. Because when our wind energy representative said, very proud, 30 gigawatt, no one could react because you don't have a reference for this specific number. Therefore, my recommendation, when you speak about wonderful things where we are proud of, look for a reference and say this is the energy consumption of Portugal or whatever. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And as the publisher of Energy Post, it would be great to have some kind of ready reckoner on the homepage to help everybody understand it. Of course, we jump around from different measurements. It's not as easy to solve, but it certainly would be useful if somebody came up with a nice chart. I think today the numbers we were talking about put it in perspective. Is that about right? The numbers that the gentleman was talking about in terms of your build-up, your aspirations are 9 gigawatts from the thing over the next 2030 horizon. Is it, sorry, 8?
In our strategy,
3.5 initially, and then building.
Yes, in our strategy we have 6.5 gigawatt. It is our strategy in
the 3 phases.
No, in the end of the second phase, we should have in our portfolio 6.5 gigawatts.
6.5.
Yes, it is about 2040. It is the time deadline when we should have in operation offshore wind farm. But now we are preparing 3.5. It is more than half our strategy. It is very huge projects at the moment in PGE because it is very expensive and very difficult, generally speaking.
Okay.
6 gigawatt is Latvia. Latvia is a nearby country. Said as much as
Okay.
we will provide.
Thank you. Okay, Pierre, I think you wanted
just very.
Are we time up?
I try to explain. 3.6 gigawatts. It is the energy which can supply 5.4 million clients. It is homes suppliers.
Yeah, I mean,
significant. Pierre, yeah.
Just to put it very, very simply, today wind in Europe is 15% of all the electricity we consume. 1.5. By 2050, in order to go climate neutral, it needs to be 50. So this gives you a scale of the increase, and the electricity system will be twice as big as it is today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going from 15 to half in a system that is twice as large as today. So that gives a sense of the scale.
The other context, of course, is you have the electricity system and then you have the energy system. So it's percentages of percentages, but thank you for that clarification. Yeah.
And just to complement as well, because I think it's very, very relevant what he's saying. At the end of the day, we need to communicate better, and that goes for all of us in this room, and we need to translate the impact of what we do at local level. Maybe I would just say, and I think it's a nice, maybe my last remarks, the potential in the Baltics are massive, are huge. We did a study in 2019, and we found out that it was 93 gigas, and I will continue with what it means. And that has been acknowledged in the Marine Border Declaration at Prime Minister level that was mentioned before. And in this study, we try, all the consultants who developed it, try to translate it also in what it means. And it's quite impressive to see that in terms of energy, so in terawatt hours, it would supply today's 1/3 of the Baltic states' energy consumption. If it was fully deployed, I mean, it's the potential, so it would be normally a little bit less, but the potential is massive. 1/3 of all electricity production consumption in these countries could be offshore wind. So I think I much agree that it needs to be communicated well, and then we need to all make an effort on that, and not only on the communication, but to reduce the NIMBY effect, not in my backyard. It's also about engagement, and we should talk also a lot about consultations.
What's the direction of travel on the NIMBY effect? Is it getting worse, better?
Well, maybe my colleagues in the industry are better placed, but I think in offshore has an advantage, which is, okay, you're not immediately next to a house. So if you put it enough far away where you don't see it and you don't, it has no big impact visually, then maybe it's a little bit easier in that sense for the offshore context. And also I think there are good opportunities enabled by the Renewable Energy Directive on establishing these renewable energy communities where you can actually also engage the locals in a very practical way where they can reap the benefits from the very beginning. So I would say I agree with the comments, and I think there is good things that can be done also at national level, at project level, on how to improve this.
Thanks very much, Ricardo Williams. We are coming to the end, I believe. So if I could ask all of you just to make one final remark before we say goodbye to the audience today. If I start with you, Marcin.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the issue of stability that was discussed earlier on. So, and it's also a part of the offshore strategy. Definitely, there must be a much more grid system integration. So this is the way. For now, this is the way we know we actually exercise every day. For example, Poland and Germany, we exchange a lot in terms of peaks so we send our energy to Germany if it's needed, but we also get a lot from Germany once they have peaks of the onshore installations, and it works. So the more grid integration, the better efficiency, the more efficient the system is. Now we also exercise the exchange of the electricity with Ukraine. Again, that's a very large market for member states, and I think it will continue. It will go further and further. Hopefully soon, Belarus and other countries will also enter the European energy market.
Thank you, Marcin. Pierre.
To pick up on that last point, the grids. You were talking about the onshore grids, building the interconnectors, how incredibly important that is to balance the energy system. Offshore, the grid needs to be built, and there's scope for a pan-European approach with offshore hybrids that generate electricity, but also help to trade electricity between different markets, so service generation and interconnectors. We think that, a third to half of the wind farms that are built between now and 2050 will be these hybrid offshore wind farms that help to balance the energy system. They save costs, they save materials, etc. They're great, and there's something to do as part of the market design reform to sharpen the regulatory framework to actually unlock investments in those very specific types of assets. Simply because a couple of years ago, when the policymakers agreed on the market design, the full potential of offshore hybrids hadn't been fully appreciated and realized. And now, if there's going to be a massive market design reform, let's use that as an opportunity to make these very important fixes.
Thank you. Ricardo, I think you've already wrapped up. Or did you want to say one final thing before I come to you, Mr. Lociński?
Maybe just one. Yeah, indeed, I wrapped up saying that there is a lot of regional potential and opportunities. And I think maybe just the last thing, I like what was mentioned before, that there are there's a lot of opportunities not only for the big players, but also the SMEs, the local economies, and companies in Poland may want to exploit the opportunities in other sea basins in Europe and vice versa. So I think the opportunities are there, they are massive, and it's all about cooperating together, ensuring that the benefits translate locally, but also making efficient supply chains and all taking advantage of the strengths of each other in the European community.
Thanks, Ricardo. Finally, Mr. Lociński, final words.
In my opinion, what I said, my colleague, I agree fully with them, but I think that the offshore wind is really opportunity and to really save energy, because the source of energy, because I am talking about the wind, is not depend on country. For example, what we saw with the gas. For example, when the Russia stopped to transform to Europe your gas to power plant. And in my opinion, we should build the offshore wind as soon as possible, because it could be get for us responsible, safe energy market. It is the most important for my opinion.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of the panelists today, and thanks to the organisers for this timely event. Hopefully, I've managed to ask some of the questions that were on your minds. I know that there's a recording being made of the session today. I'm sure that Agatha and the team at ZPP will make sure that you have a chance to go back and look at anything that you missed. But from me, Matthew James at Energy Post, thanks very much for joining today, and thanks very much to all of our panelists. Ricardo Williams from the European Commission, Marcin from ZPP, which is Marcin Nowacki, is how it's pronounced. Pierre Tardieu, Chief Policy Officer at Wind Europe, and of course to Mr. Dariusz Lociński, President of the Management Board at PG Baltica. Thanks very much, everybody, and good to see you. Thanks very much.
Okay. Anyway, please let's try to be here at 10 to 3, so about 10 minutes for